What is up, everyone? Welcome to the FAA podcast, special Sunday edition. College football week one had a great weekend. Both watching it, fantasy drafts going on, bets hitting, which was fun as well. So it's been a pretty solid weekend. Hopefully, everyone else having a good Labor Day weekend. Labor Day tomorrow, obviously. But we got Jimmy's wedding this week, so got to do some shows before that. So my guy John will be on a little bit later, but we are in NFL week one officially now. So let's get to college football week one here. Number 16, Oklahoma, 51-3 blowout of Temple on Friday night. We had a whole host of games on Friday. Bunch of them actually very competitive, which we'll talk about, but this one not so much. Luckily, Oklahoma did score late, so I cashed the over 49.5 on the Oklahoma total. Team total there. Jackson Arnold, though, I was pretty impressed by Jackson Arnold. He was one of the reasons why I did not pick Oklahoma to do that well this season. I just was not sure about him. Only started the bowl game where they did win, but just one career start prior to this one. So really good start. 4 touchdowns, only 141 yards, though, on 17 completions. So definitely got to get the air yards up, but 68% efficient, no turnovers. That's what you want to see. 34 rushing yards as well can move for Brent Venables' squad. Michael Hawkins Jr. came in a little bit, completed 50%, 2 of 4 for 17 yards and 10 yards on 2 carries there. Forrest Brock for the Owls here, not a great night, 48%, 128 yards, 2 picks, and a fumble. Oklahoma running back Taylor Tatum, I believe he's a freshman, 69 yards, led the game in rushing on 5 carries and a touchdown. You also had a touchdown. And then Oklahoma tight end Bauer Sharp, he led the game in receiving, 47 yards, tied with his teammate Jaleel Farouk, the wide receiver, for the lead in the game, 47 yards on 5 receptions and a touchdown. For Sharp, Farouk had a lone reception for 47 yards. How about the Purdue transfer, Deion Burks, 3 touchdowns in his first game as a Sooner. Only 36 yards, though, on 6 receptions again. Got to get the air yards up for Jackson Arnold, I think. And then pretty bad night for Temple wide receiver Dante Wright. 3 catches, 36 yards, but he had 2 fumbles. Part of I believe it was 6 turnover night for the Temple Owls offense. And defensively, I got to go with the guy that had a defensive touchdown, Oklahoma linebacker Jaron Kanak. 2 tackles and a 21-yard fumble return for a touchdown. Good night for Marcus Strong, the D-line for the Sooners as well. Oklahoma minus 43.5 covered, under 57.5. The Spartans, Jonathan Smith gets his first win at the helm, 16-10 over the FAU Owls. Cam Fancher for FAU, Marshall transfer, 48%, 116 yards, touchdown, 2 picks, 25 carries, big rush load, but only 67 yards on those. I really like Cam Fancher. I think he's going to do well. It was a tough game, first night for him in an Owls uniform, but I think he's going to be a good player, played very well at Marshall the last couple of years. So Aiden Childs, the Oregon State transfer, brought in with Jonathan Smith. Passing-wise, not so great. 41.7%, 114 yards, 2 interceptions as well. So not the greatest of nights, but he did have 6 carries for 28 yards and a rushing score, his first in a Michigan State uniform. So lot to clean up for Aiden Childs and Jonathan Smith there, but I think it was a decent first night for him. What they know they have is running back Kayron Lynch-Adams. Excellent night, 9 carries, 101 yards, and a rushing touchdown as well. Very good night. Star of the game, really, in my mind. Leading the way in receiving was FAU's wide receiver Omari Hayes, 5 catches, 74 yards on this one. His teammate, wide receiver Jayshon Platt, caught the lone touchdown for the Owls from Cam Fancher. And defensively, I'm going to go with Michigan State defensive lineman Chris Boggle 5 tackles, 3 solos, 1.5 sacks, 2.5 tackles for loss. FAU plus 12.5 covered under 44.5 easily. Wisco, the Wisconsin Badgers. It was more difficult than I think most people thought it was going to be and what the spread indicated. 28-14 over the Western Michigan Broncos. Tyler Van Dyke, up and down night for him, I would say 58.3%, 192, 8 carries, 21 yards, touchdown, and he did have a fumble as well. So sub 50 QBR is not where you want to be. And again, just like I said with Childs, a lot of things to clean up here for the Wisconsin quarterback in year 2 in year 1, I should say. Year 2 of Luke Fickell in Madison, but Tyler Van Dyke, the transfer from Miami, lot of stuff to clean up as they move forward. Hayden Wolf for Western Michigan, decent night, 66.7%, 141 a pick as well. The Western Michigan defense kept the Broncos in this game the entire night, but just not enough at the end because the Wisconsin running game was on point. Ches Malusi, the Oklahoma transfer to Wee Walker as well. 19 carries, 74 yards for Malusi. He scored and had a 3-yard reception. Walker, 15 carries, 66 yards, a touchdown, 2 catches for 11 yards as well. And then Western Michigan, good night on the ground for them as well. Jalen Buckley, 16 carries, 64 yards, 2 scores for him, and a 24-yard reception as well. Wisconsin wide receiver Will Pauling led the game in receiving, 60 yards on 6 catches. And then defensively, there weren't a lot of stats, but I'm going to go with the top leading tackler on the night, Western Michigan linebacker Donald Willis, 10 tackles, 6 solos, 1 tackle for loss, and 2 passes defensed. Western Michigan plus 24.5 covered easily, under 56.5. The last game we covered on Friday, TCU 34-27 over Stanford, and I have no clue how TCU did not cover the spread against Stanford because I had 8.5, and we were covering, and then, of course, Stanford had to kick a late field goal to cover on that side. Annoying, I know. But it was a lot of self-inflicted wounds for TCU, really. Josh Hoover played pretty well, 66.7%, 353, 2 touchdowns, rushing touchdown. He did have a fumble, though. And the penalties were just crazy for TCU. The Horned Frogs, both offensively and more importantly, defensively, got penalized a ton in this game. And it was at key moments. 3rd and longs for Stanford. TCU would bail them out with penalties. I know there was a face mask on one instance. I think roughing the passer on another one. Just check the team stats here. 7 penalties for 100 yards. So it was ridiculous for the Horned Frogs in this one, really keeping Stanford in the game. Ashton Daniels, though, didn't play bad. 48.6%, 163, a touchdown, a pick, 17 carries, 87 yards. Very effective running the ball. Still only a sophomore, I believe. And so there's still a lot of room to grow for Daniels and Troy Taylor and co. The other quarterback, their short yardage guy, Justin Lamson. Good night for him. 2 touchdowns on 2 touches. He completed his only pass for a 2-yard passing touchdown, and he ran a ball in to the end zone as well. TCU running back Cam Cook led the game in rushing outside of Daniels, 81 yards on 20 carries and a rushing score. His teammate, wide receiver Jack Besh, led the game in receiving. Excellent night for the Horned Frog receivers. Besh with 6 catches for 139 yards and a touchdown. And wide receiver J.P. Richardson, 6 catches, 107 yards and a fumble. The sophomore standout, wide receiver Alec A.O. Manor, 100-yard night to start his season. 7 catches, 102 yards for him. Touchdowns also on the night from TCU wide receiver Savion Williams on his 11 catches for 85 yards. Ismail Cease for the Cardinal, and wide receiver Jackson Harris caught one for Stanford as well. Defensively, I'm going to go with TCU linebacker Nnamdi Obiezer, 4 tackles, 3 solos, 1.5 sacks, 2.5 tackles for loss. Devin Deal had an excellent night as well, though, for the Horned Frogs defense. Stanford plus 8.5 covered over 58.5. And yesterday we had a full slate of college football week 1 games. The Aflac kickoff in Atlanta at Mercedes-Benz Stadium where the Atlanta Falcons play. Number 1 Georgia absolutely dominant over number 14 Clemson 34-3. Go Dogs, baby. Carson Beck looked very good, 69.7%, 278, 2 touchdowns, 3 carries for 19 yards as well. Wasn't a great first half. They led 6-3, but outscored Clemson 28-0 in or 28. They led 6-0 at halftime, I think, and they outscored Clemson 28-3 in the second half. Cade Klubnik was not great, 62.1%, which isn't bad, but 142 yards on 18 completions is not good. And he threw an interception. So, yeah, I mean, the Dogs are going to be barking again in Clemson, South Carolina, because Cade Klubnik, is he the guy? Because there were question marks coming in that he wasn't, and he didn't play that great this one. Georgia. So running back Trevor Etienne, the Florida transfer, suspended for this game for his driving arrest. Also down Roderick Robinson to injury. So they had some other guys step up. Nate Frazier, the freshman running back, was one of them. 11 carries, 83 yards, a touchdown, and a 24-yard reception. Excellent day for him. Cash Jones, the veteran, he ran a 15-yard touchdown in as well. Collected 2 catches for 14 yards to go along with that. Clemson wide receiver Antonio Williams led the game in receiving, 6 catches, 76 yards. You had touchdowns from Carson Beck go to Vanderbilt transfer wide receiver Landon Humphreys on his 2 receptions, and Miami transfer wide receiver Colby Young on his 2 catches as well. And defensively, I'm going to go with Georgia linebacker Jalen Walker, 6 tackles, 3 solos, 1.5 sacks, 1.5 tackles for loss. Georgia minus 10.5 covered, under 49.5. Number 8, Penn State, also dominant, 34-12 over West Virginia. Would love to see Pat McAfee's reaction to this game, because everyone was like, oh, yeah, West Virginia's going to win. West Virginia, they can't come into Morgantown and beat us. Yeah, well, Penn State, under Andy Kotelnicki, the new offensive coordinator, had other plans. Tom Allen, new defense coordinator, also very good in this one. Drew Aller was very good, 64.7%, 216, 3 touchdowns, 6 carries for 44 yards as well. I was highly impressed by the offense for Kotelnicki and crew. Bo Pribula, the Penn State backup, completed his only pass for a 19-yard touchdown. Also had 3 carries for 25 yards. Good change of pace guy there. Garrett Green, there's a lot of talk about Garrett Green, 53.6%, 161, and a fumble. Nico Martial, the backup sophomore, also threw a pass, but it was a interception. Penn State, very good day on the ground. Nicholas Singleton, 13 carries, 114 yards, and a touchdown, and a 13-yard reception as well. C.J. Donaldson Jr. for West Virginia, he scored on the ground. Penn State's other running back, Katron Allen, not very good on the ground, just 20 yards on 10 carries, but he did catch a 20-yard touchdown on his lone reception. How about the day? Harrison Wallace, the third breakout day for him, 5 catches, 117 yards, 2 touchdowns. Excellent day there. And then Penn State tight end Tyler Warren, good old reliable, caught a touchdown on his 3 catches for 30 yards. Defensively, I got to go with Penn State safety Jalen Reed, 9 tackles, 3 solos, a tackle for loss, and 2 passes defensed. Penn State minus 7.5 covered easily, under 48.5. Number 25, Iowa, 40-0 over Illinois State, the number 19 ranked FCS team. Yeah, I mean, I think Iowa really showed some offense in this one against, like I said, one of the top 25 FCS teams. So, yeah, Cade McNamara, excellent day, 67.7%, 251, 3 touchdowns, a 12-yard carry as well. Illinois State quarterback Tommy Rittenhouse had a tough day, 50%, 119 yards and a pick. Iowa running back Caleb Johnson, great day, 100 yards effort, 11 carries, 119 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an 8-yard reception. Iowa wide receiver Reese Vanderzee, he led the game in receiving, 5 catches, 66 yards, 2 scores. And Iowa wide receiver Jacob Gill also catching a touchdown from McNamara. Defensively, dude, how about the day for Iowa defensive lineman Aaron Graves? 4 tackles, all of them solos. A hat trick of sacks with 3 and 3 tackles for loss as well. Iowa minus 22.5 covers under 40.5 by the hook. That is dreadful for overbetters. Number 15, Tennessee, just destruction. 69-3 over Chattanooga. Nico Iamalava, excellent day. Could not have gone better for the sophomore quarterback. 22 of 28, 78.6%, 314, 3 touchdowns, no turnovers. There's not much to say. Nico had a great day. Tennessee also played 2 other quarterbacks. Gaston Morse, 58.3%, 69 yards a pick. And then Jake Merklinger, 4 of 4 for 31 yards there. Chattanooga quarterback Chase Artapius, 52.2%, 141 yards for him on the day. The Mocs struggled offensively, obviously, all day. Tennessee running back Dylan Sampson, 100-yard performance for him, 12 carries, 124 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 catches for 29 yards in this one. His teammate, running back Deshaun Bishop and Khalifa Keith, both scoring rushing touchdowns for the Volunteers on the day as well. Wide receiver Dante Thornton Jr., the Oregon transfer, 100-yard day in his first appearance as a Volunteer, 3 catches, 105 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then his teammate tight end Ethan Davis caught a score on 2 catches. Defensively, I got to go with Tennessee defensive lineman Jordan Ross. 1 tackle. It was a solo, a tackle for loss, and a 13-yard blocked punt return for a touchdown. Tennessee minus 38.5 covers easily over 56.5 by themselves. Number 17, Oklahoma State, 44-20 over South Dakota State, the number 1 team in the FCS rankings, back-to-back FCS national champions. But it was a tough day going up against a top 25 FBS opponent in Oklahoma State, experienced as they are. Quarterback Alan Bowman, solid day for him, 73.5%, 257, 3 touchdowns. However, though, there were, again, moments that I saw what I saw on tape from last season. He's still throwing off the back of his foot, which leads to potential interceptions. He didn't throw one in this game, but there was 1 or 2 instances where the Jackrabbits could have had one. And it's just too much lofting of the ball, not enough driving off the front foot for me on Alan Bowman, hence why I graded him 6th/7th rounder. Mark Gronowski, the other quarterback on the other side there, Jackrabbits, 54.1%, 264, 2 touchdowns, a pick, 10 carries, 17 yards. Not a bad day, really. Not a bad day against a top 25 opponent. And South Dakota State's going to get galvanized by this performance, I think, scoring 20 for 1 and being in the game in the first half as well. I think the Jackrabbits are going to take a lot out of this game, especially as they go on, their run toward a three-peat in the FCS. Ollie Gordon, excellent first day, 27 carries, 104 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4 catches, 42 yards, and a receiving score as well. That touchdown reception, that was what looks to make Ollie Gordon one of the top backs in this year's class. Caught the ball, and then there was about 3, maybe 4 Jackrabbits defenders in the area with a couple Oklahoma State blockers, mind you. But he shed 2 tackles and then ran into the end zone, dove into the end zone as he was getting tackled and got the score. South Dakota State wide receiver Griffin Wild, he led the game in reception. Excellent day. 7 catches, 150 yards, and a touchdown for, I believe he's a sophomore. Oklahoma State touchdowns coming from wide receiver Rashad Owens and the veteran Brennan Presley. South Dakota State wide receiver Graham Goring also catching a score from Mark Gronowski. And defensively, I'm going to go with Oklahoma State linebacker Colin Oliver. 2 tackles, both of them solos, a sack, 2 tackles for loss. Oklahoma State minus 12.5 covered over a 55.5. Number 2, Ohio State. The Buckeyes rolling over Akron 52-6. I'm telling you, though, there was a lot of concern for me and should be concerns for Ohio State early on in this game. Akron was in it. Akron actually took the lead 3-0. But the Ohio State defense was excellent all day and held Akron to only 3 in the second half. But, of course, I had the over 59 because it went very low prior to the game. I had gotten 59 a couple days before. So, yeah, it sucked. Ohio State really sucked in the first half. Did not score enough points. I think it was 17-3 at halftime or something like that. So, yeah, it was very disappointing. Ohio State didn't score enough. I was like, bro, come on. You're Ohio State against Akron, who I had not being very good this year. 2-10, I think. Will Howard, though, the Kansas State transfer, decent in his first appearance as a Buckeye, 60.7%, 228, 3 touchdowns, 4 carries for 18 yards. Akron played about 3 quarterbacks there. Taj Bullock, 9 of 13, 69.2%, 68 yards, 14 carries, 42 yards, did have a fumble. And he also caught 2 balls for 4 yards as well, interestingly enough. Do-it-all guy, kind of like Taysom Hill. Ben Finley was the starter for the Zips, though. 57.1%, 53 yards a pick. He got injured during the game. And then Braden Rogo also came in, played a 50%, 9 yards, and a pick. Ohio State running back Travion Henderson led the game in rushing, 65 yards on 8 carries, 2 catches for 18 yards as well. His teammate Quinshon Judkins, the Ole Miss transfer, he scored in his first game as a Buckeye, as did freshman running back James Peoples for Ohio State. And how about freshman wide receiver Jeremiah Smith? I think the hype has been justified after his first game as a Buckeye here. 92 yards on 6 receptions, 2 touchdowns for the freshman. Touchdown also coming from Carnell Tate for the Buckeyes. And defensively, I mean, there's 2 guys with touchdowns. Linebacker Gabe Powers for Ohio State, 1 tackle. It was a solo, a 29-yard pick 6. And then my defensive player of the game, Ohio State safety Latham Ransom, led the game in tackles with 9, 5 of those solos, 2 tackles for loss, and a 27-yard fumble return for a touchdown. JT Tuimoloau had a great day as well for the Buckeyes defense. Akron did cover plus 48.5, over 55.5. People are lucky that got it pregame right before the game instead of like me a couple days before. Number 4, Texas, hook 'em. 52-0 shutout over Colorado State. Quinn Ewers was excellent. 74.1%, 263 touchdowns. Did throw a pick, but otherwise, excellent first day for Quinn Ewers as they try to make it in the SEC here. And Arch Manning, I know, the hype is real. 5 of 6, 83.3%, 95 yards, touchdown, rushing touchdown as well. Great first performance for Arch Manning and relief effort for Quinn Ewers at the end of the game. For the Rams, though, Braden Fowler Nicolosi, 55.6%, 59 yards a pick. Not too great, but I still think Colorado State can be a decent team in the Mountain West this year. Jackson Brousseau came in at the end for him, 50%, 15 yards, and a pick. Colorado State running back Justin Marshall actually led the game in rushing, a 100-yard day for the Rams running back, 25 carries, 106 yards, and a 1-yard reception. Texas running back Jarek Gibson had a rushing touchdown, as did his teammate Quintravion Wisner. Texas freshman wide receiver Ryan Wingo, 4 catches, 70 yards on his first day as a Longhorn. Alabama transfer wide receiver Isaiah Bond had a touchdown in his first game as a Longhorn, and his teammate wide receiver Matthew Golden, transfer from Houston, I believe, 2 touchdown day for him from Quinn Ewers. And then the Oregon State transfer wide receiver Silas Bolden, he scored on his lone reception, 5-yard touchdown from Arch Manning, I believe it was. And then defensively, there weren't a ton of stats. So I'm going to go with Colorado State defensive lineman James Mitchell, 4 tackles, 3 solos, 1 tackle for loss, and a pass deflection. Texas covered minus 34.5, under 62.5. Couldn't get any help from Colorado State. And the Canes, number 19, Miami. Sorry about that, people. We're having some technical stuff going on here. Anyways, number 19, Miami, 41-17 over Florida. Absolute crushing of the Gators in Gainesville. I was super happy and I knew Miami was going to do this, dude. They had too much talent. I had them highly ranked in the ACC, finishing 3rd behind Clemson and Florida State, which doesn't look great right now, but still, I think Miami is going to be a great team this year. Cameron Ward, awesome first day as a Cane. 74.3%, 385, 3 touchdowns, threw a pick, but that's fine. 3 carries for 33 yards as well. I was super impressed by Cam Ward and the throws he made. I mean, some of them were ridiculous throws. For Florida, Graham Mertz, 55%, 91 yards a pick. He got injured as well in this game, so we'll see the status of him going forward. But freshman quarterback DJ Lagway, I think there is a lot of Gators fans that wanted to see him, and they got to see him because Mertz went out with an injury. 50%, just 3 of 6 for 31 yards. Did throw an interception, but 4 carries for 20 yards and led them down to a touchdown late. And so I think it's going to be interesting. The Billy Napier situation, he's already on the hot seat in year 3, I believe it is, and I don't know. We'll see if Lagway gets to start next week. If Mertz can't go, that's the big thing. I think Mertz is still going to be the starter for now until unless he can't go health wise, and unless Florida keeps losing games like I predict them to. I think it's going to be Mertz for now. Florida running back Montrell Johnson Jr., 100-yard day for him to start the season. 11 carries, 106 yards, a touchdown, and a 1-yard reception. I was highly impressed by Damian Martinez, the Oregon State transfer. The power that he showed on a couple of the runs, pushing the pile by himself, really, to get extra yards was very impressive for me. 65 yards on 15 carries. That's a good average, 4.3. Did have a reception as well. And then Miami, his teammate, Mark Fletcher Jr., he had 2 touchdowns on his 7 carries, 22-yard reception as well. And Florida running back Trayon Webb, he had a touchdown on one of his 3 carries there. Love Miami wide receiver Xavier Restrepo. I think he's going to be a slot fiend in the NFL. 7 receptions, 112 yards, and a touchdown for him on the day. Also touchdowns for the Canes going to wide receiver Jacoby George and tight end Cam McCormick on his 1 reception for 9 yards. That was an awesome moment. Awesome moment to see Cam McCormick get into the end zone. He is in his 9th year of college football. Came back from, I think, 3 different major injuries and just continued to work, continued to strive for the dream and to love it. Coming in from Oregon, I just think it's an awesome story, and happy for Cam McCormick to get in the end zone in the first game of the season here. Defensively, I am going to go with Miami linebacker Francisco Mauigoa. He had a great day. 6 tackles, 4 of them solos, 1 sack, 1.5 tackles for loss, and a pass deflection. Jaden Harris also for the Canes. Great day for him. Miami minus 2.5 covered easily over 54.5. UTSA, the Roadrunners, spoiling the Owls of Kennesaw State's first game as an FBS team. 28-16 over Kennesaw. How about Owen McCown? I believe that's Josh McCown's son. Just crazy day. 73.7%, 340, 3 touchdowns, a rushing score as well. I mean, McCown was awesome, and I'm excited for the Roadrunners this season now under him. For Kennesaw, Davis Bryson, 50%, 202, a touchdown, 19 carries, 21 yards as well on the ground. So not a terrible first game in the FBS for Bryson and the Owls there. UTSA running back Robert Henry, he led the game in rushing, 30 yards on 6 carries, also a 61-yard reception. For UTSA, wide receiver Devin McEwen, he led the game in receiving, 11 receptions for 79 yards, 2 touchdowns from McCown. The other touchdown going to veteran tight end Oscar Cardenas. And Kennesaw State's first touchdown as an FBS team went to tight end Carson Kent on his 3 catches. Defensively, I'm going to go with Kennesaw. Yeah, he's my player of the game. Linebacker Denelius Johnson, 7 tackles, 4 solos, 2 sacks, 2.5 tackles for loss. Pretty solid defense for the Owls defense in their first game. Kennesaw plus 25 covered easily under 49.5. Number 5, Alabama. The Crimson Tide 63-0 over Western Kentucky. Jalen Milroe was lights out in this one. 77.8%. Only threw it 9 times. That was kind of concerning for me, though. 7 of 9, 200 yards. Oh, it's ridiculous. 3 touchdowns for him passing. 10 carries, 79 yards, 2 rushing scores. So 5 total touchdowns for Jimmy's Heisman candidate. I mean, that's a great start for him. But again, only 9 attempts, which I thought was crazy. Ty Simpson also came in later, completed 5 of 9 for 55.6%, 66 yards, 2 carries, 32 yards, and a rushing score. For Western Kentucky, it is Texas State transfer quarterback TJ Finley, 58.1%, 92 yards, 2 picks, 7 carries for 17 yards. Then the incumbent Caden Veltkamp, 4 of 9, 44.4%, and 11 yards. Alabama running back Justice Haynes, he led the game in rushing with a 100-yard day, 4 carries, 102 yards, and a touchdown, 25.5 yards per carry. That'll get it done for you. Alabama had an excellent rushing attack all day. Jam Miller, Daniel Hill also rushing in touchdowns. Alabama freshman wide receiver Ryan Williams, pretty solid day in his first game as a Crimson Tide player. 2 receptions, 139 yards, and 2 touchdowns, 69.5 yards per reception. That is crazy. Alabama wide receiver Kendrick Law also catching a touchdown from Milroe. There was not a ton of stats in this one defensively, but I'm going to go with the Michigan transfer, defensive back Keon Saab for Alabama. 2 tackles, both of them solos, and 2 interceptions. Alabama minus 37.5 covered easily, over 60.5 by themselves. How about number 6, Ole Miss? They wanted to up Alabama, so they won 76-0 over Furman. They were up 52-0 at halftime. Just ridiculous offensive output for Lane Kiffin's squad. Jackson Dart was phenomenal. 81.5%, 418 yards, 5 touchdowns, 6 carries, 27 yards, and a rushing score. 6 total for Dart on the day. Ole Miss also playing Austin Simmons at quarterback, 43.8%, 111 yards, and a touchdown. 3 carries for 10 yards. For the Paladins, it was Carson Jones, 60%, 119, 1 pick. And Trey Hedden also played 44.4% for 27 yards. Running the ball for the Rebels, Matt Jones led the game, 3 carries, 68 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And then you had a crazy output for Ole Miss wide receiver Trey Harris. Love this guy. 8 receptions, 179 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Ole Miss, other receiving touchdowns coming from wide receiver Caden Lee, tight end Caden Priestcorn, and the South Carolina transfer wide receiver Antwain Wells Jr., and tight end Daquan Wright as well. Defensively, yeah, there's a lot of great performances. I'm going to go with Ole Miss defensive end. Cam Franklin, though, 5 tackles, 2 solos, 1.5 sacks, 3 tackles for loss. You cannot discount, though, Ole Miss defensive tackle J.J. Pegues. 4 tackles, 3 solos, 2 tackles for loss, and he ran it twice on offense for 12 yards and a rushing touchdown for the big man. Ole Miss covered easily, minus 45.5, over 58.5 by themselves, also very easily. Number 18, Kansas State, Kansas State, 41-6, beat down over UT Martin. Yeah, first game as a starter, as the full-time starter for Avery Johnson and the Wildcats, 66.7%, 153, 2 touchdowns, a pick, 3 carries for 37 yards. Pretty decent. Got to up the air yards, though, 153 yards on 14 completions. Not the greatest. UT Martin, the Skyhawks, a couple quarterbacks on the day for them. Kincaid Dent, 50% for 87 yards. And Kaya Sharon completed all 3 of his passes for 11 yards. Kansas State running back DJ Giddens, excellent 100-yard performance in his first game of the season. 13 carries, 124 yards, 3 catches for 6 yards as well. His teammate, Colorado transfer running back Dylan Edwards, good day on the ground, 43 yards, 5 carries, a touchdown, and also caught one, 19 yards receiving on 2 catches and a receiving touchdown. Their other teammate, running back LaJames White, ran a touchdown in, 12-yard score for his only carry of the day. Kansas State wide receiver Jace Brown led the way in receiving, 71 yards on 5 catches and a fumble. Kansas State tight end Braden Lofton, he caught the lone one of the other touchdowns from Johnson on the day. And defensively, I'm going to go with Kansas State defensive end Toby Osunsanmi, 2 tackles, 1 solo, 1.5 sacks, 1.5 tackles lost. And you cannot discount the special teams play. Safety Colby McAllister, a 1-yard blocked punt return for a touchdown. UT Martin covered, plus 36.5, under 56.5. UNLV, a beatdown over Houston, 27-7. Barry Odom's squad, excellent day for them. And you know, I think a lot of people liked Houston in this game, but I was like, no, UNLV is my pick to win the Mountain West this year. They were so close last year, losing to Boise State. I just think they have a great player in Matthew Saluka at quarterback, coming from Holy Cross. You know, he didn't play that well, but the Rebels overall had a great day. They ran the ball well and played good defense. So, what is up, my guy?
How's it going? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Cool.
Yeah. So Donovan Smith struggled in this one, and you know, he's an experienced quarterback. I was kind of surprised he struggled. I thought this one was definitely going to be a lot closer, but just 50%, 135 yards, 2 picks for him. And then you had their backup, Ui Ale. That's an excellent name. UI as a first name is awesome. 87.5%, 7 of 8, 74 yards, and got the Cougars on the board late with the passing touchdown. Matthew Saluka, like I said, Holy Cross transfer. It's a pretty far trip from Holy Cross to UNLV, but yeah, not the greatest day. 46.2%, 71 yards, 2 touchdowns, a pick, and 11 carries for 59 yards on the ground as well. But I think he'll get better. He's a very experienced quarterback, excellent stats at Holy Cross. So I think he's going to be in a good spot with Coach Odom out there in Las Vegas. UNLV running back Michael Allen led the game in rushing, 65 yards on 10 carries, and leading the game in receiving, UNLV wide receiver Jaden Bradley, 2 catches, 60 yards. And touchdowns on the day, UNLV wide receiver Jacob DeJesus, 2 scores on his 3 catches. And Houston wide receiver Joseph Manjack IV, 1 catch on his 3 catches. Defensively, I mean, there's 2 guys. There's got to be 2 guys. UNLV had an excellent day. Jackson Woodard, the Arkansas transfer, 11 tackles, 7 solos, 3 sacks, 4 tackles for loss, and a pass defense. That's crazy production in his first game as a Rebel. And then the Texas transfer, defensive back Jalen Catalon, 4 tackles, 3 solos, 1 pass defense, 2 picks, and a 36-yard pick 6 off one of them. So maybe Sluka doesn't have to do it a lot. He has a good defense out there.
How did Houston give up 27 points with these defensive stats? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm mistaken. Never mind. Don't listen to me.
Yeah. UNLV got a defensive score, and then Sluka threw 2. So yeah. UNLV plus 2.5 wins outright, under 54.5. I knew I should have bet on UNLV, dude. I stayed away from this game because the lines were too close, and I knew.
Were they?
Yeah, it was 2.5. So I was like,
yeah. I know UNLV is supposed to be, I believe, the favorites, if not one of the 2 favorites for the Mountain West.
Yeah, a lot of people like Boise State, but I like UNLV. I picked UNLV to win the Mountain West. So,
I wonder if a lot of that's just because of the running back Boise State's got.
Probably, which we won't even talk about Boise State because Boise Georgia Southern wasn't one of our games that we had this week, even though we should because he had a crazy day.
Touchdowns. Insane.
This was the most disappointing performance of week 1. Number 3 Oregon, 24-14 over Idaho. Like, I was watching this game and I was like, dude, what is Oregon doing? Like, how can they only score 24 points against Idaho? And the crazy thing, like, Dylan Gabriel had a good day. It took him 41 completions to get 380 yards. But, I mean, 83.7%, 41 of 49 is ridiculous. 2 touchdowns. He did have a fumble. But my concern is, because Oregon was my Big Ten champion, my concern is, are they going to be able to protect him when they start the Big Ten schedule? Because he got battered in this game by the Idaho defensive line.
Were there any injuries in place, or is Oregon have their starters out and they were struggling this way?
I have no clue. But, I mean, it just was not a good look for Dan Lanning's offensive line. Luckily, he's a defensive coach at heart, so they held Idaho to 14. But, yeah, I mean, it was, like I said, probably the most disappointing performance of anyone in week 1. For the Vandals, offensively, Jack Lane was the quarterback, 44%, 168 yards, touchdown, a pick, and a rushing score. That made it a 1-score game. He got that rushing touchdown in and made it 14. Actually, it was a 1-score, 14-17. And that's when I went ahead and bet Idaho money line at plus 900. I was like, dude, why not? Why not? If Idaho wins this game and I make a lot of money, I don't care. It's fine. I mean, that would be the biggest upset I would have ever witnessed. So, yeah, I was fine with it. I did win Idaho plus 26.5 live though, which was cool. Jack Wagner also came in for the Vandals a little bit, 0 for 2 and a pick. And Oregon running back Jordan James led the way in on the ground, 95 yards on 15 carries, a touchdown, 4 catches for 40 yards as well. And Oregon tight end Terrence Ferguson, he led the game in receiving, 87 yards on 7 catches. Great day for Oregon wide receiver Tez Johnson, 12 catches, 81 yards, 2 touchdowns. But that's the thing that we saw, though, in this game. Like, Oregon did not look like Oregon. There weren't deep shots a ton, and it was just like check down after check down for Dylan Gabriel. It was ridiculous. There was not a lot of verticality to the Oregon offense in this game. Idaho tight end Jake Cox, he caught the touchdown from Jack Lane. And defensively, it's Idaho. Defensive lineman Keyshawn James Newby. 6 tackles, 5 solos, 2 sacks, 2.5 tackles for loss. I will say DJ Uyunglele's brother, Mateo, had a great day as well. 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss on his 3 tackles. Idaho plus 43.5. Covered easily. Under 62.5. Also very easily. This was one of the games of the day. Number 7, Notre Dame. Go Irish. 23-13 over number 20, Texas A&M. I was very happy about this game. Got the win in College Station. And although I was tweeting out during this game about my issues that I saw with the Notre Dame offense. Riley Leonard, 18 of 30, 60%, 158 yards, 12 carries for 63 yards. I just thought, and they started to do it a little bit more in the second half. Riley Leonard's an experienced quarterback. Like, you need to let him throw the ball. I understand the Texas A&M defensive line is really good. You have a bunch of new starters on the offensive line for Notre Dame and young guys, but Riley Leonard's good enough that like they needed to throw the ball more down the field, and not even like deep shots, but just like, okay, run some slants, run some deep outs, run some over routes, some crossers. There was just, in my mind, too much side to side game. It was a lot of wide receiver screens, and I hate those, especially they were running some of them on like 3rd and medium. I'm like, dude, Riley Leonard can get you this if you just call a regular passing play. So, yeah, they eventually got the win, but wasn't really because of Riley Leonard, I would say. He did have a couple good runs late in this game, but it was the running attack. The O-line for Notre Dame really stepped up late, and the backs were crazy. Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price had some excellent moves, breaking tackles as well. And once they got in the open field, they were gone. So, yeah, I think the Irish are going to be all right. I had Notre Dame going undefeated this year. So, and they talked about the schedule last night as well. Like, this was the game, really, that they had to get through. Their only close game in terms of win probability is their last game of the season at USC. So, and I don't think they're going to have an issue with that. Not the way that their defense plays, not the guys they have in the secondary. So, yeah, Connor Wegman for the Aggies, though, 40%, 100 yards, 2 picks, 7 carries for 26 yards. I was not impressed by him at all. I know a lot of people coming into the season had him as maybe one of the guys that could get into the first round in next year's draft, but he did not play very well against probably one of the best defenses in college football, mind you, but still. And it wasn't really his fault either. Texas A&M, they don't have the receivers. Like, they could not get guys open at all. So that was a big issue as well, as their leading receiver for A&M was just 31 yards on 6 catches for Ja'Day Walker. But running the ball, Jeremiah Love, I mentioned, 91 yards, 14 carries, a touchdown, and a 3-yard reception. Jadarian Price, also a touchdown on his 8 carries for the Irish. Le'Veon Moss, he was probably A&M's best player on offense, 70 yards on 20 carries and a touchdown, 2 catches for 13 yards as well. Notre Dame wide receiver Bo Collins led the game in receiving, 62 yards on 5 catches. And then defensively, it's the guy that everyone talked about going into the game, Texas A&M defensive lineman Nick Scorton, the Purdue transfer, 3 tackles, 1 solo, 1.5 tackles for loss, and a pass defensed. Notre Dame plus 2.5 wins outright, under 46.5. Number 9, Michigan, 30-10 over Fresno State. And again, sort of like Ohio State. Like, I know a lot of people had Ohio State in the national championship against Georgia. I didn't even have Ohio State making my 12-team bracket. I had too many other good teams. I didn't have Michigan in my bracket either. And I know Coach Dan Mullen on Friday night during his halftime segment, mulling it over, Michigan was one of the teams that he had as a potential surprise team to miss the playoff. And by this performance, I think it's very much justified. Like I said, I didn't have Michigan either in mind. I just think there's too many new players. Sherrod Moore is a decent coach, but I'm not sold on the quarterback play either, which you have to have. Essentially, you can't just. I mean, I guess they did ride a running game and a defense to the national championship last year, but JJ McCarthy is a much better quarterback than what they have in Ann Arbor right now. So in terms of this game, though, quarterback Mikey Keene for the Bulldogs, 61.1%, 235, a touchdown, 2 picks. Michigan, like I said, I was not impressed by the quarterback play. 60% for Davis Warren, 118 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. And Alex Orji also playing in this one, completed 1 of 2 for 3 yards and a touchdown, and 5 carries for 32 yards. Running game for Michigan was working well, though, especially in the fourth quarter. Running back Kalel Mullings, 92 yards on 15 carries, lead the game in rushing. Donovan Edwards, his running mate, had a receiving touchdown on his 2 catches for 0 yards. And Fresno wide receiver Jalen Moss led the way in receiving, 97 yards on 6 catches. Mikey Keene's lone touchdown went to Missouri State transfer wide receiver Raylan Sharp. And tight end Colston Loveland, excellent first game for his Mackey Award campaign. 8 catches, 87 yards, a touchdown. And defensively, there's 2 guys. So I'm going to go with Michigan defensive end Josiah Stewart, 5 tackles, all of them solos, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss. And then the guy that's one of the top corners in this year's draft class, defensive back Will Johnson, 3 tackles, 2 solos, 1 pass defense, and an 86-yard pick 6. That saved me. It saved me, John. I texted my friend. I was like, well, Michigan just scored. So I was like, I had minus 13.5. And I was like, dude, I was like, the only way, because they were up, 23-10. I was like, God, of course it's going to lose by the hook. And I texted my friend. I was like, the only way, like, we need a defensive touchdown here. And as Fresno was driving down the field, Will Johnson saved my day, 86 yards to the house.
I was surprised how close Fresno kept this throughout the game.
Yeah, I mean,
pull away at the end, Michigan, but I thought it was going to be a blowout, personally.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, I knew it was. I thought it was going to be right around where this was. I mean, I'm not sold on Michigan. It's just I'm a big quarterback guy, so I don't trust if they have to go down and win the game. I'm not trusting Davis Warren or Alex Orji to do that. So, and Fresno, like I said when we were on our fantasy draft teams meeting yesterday, and talking to our guy Isaias, our Fresno State fan, I was like, dude, I have Fresno in the Mountain West Championship against UNLV this year. So I really like Mikey Keene, and I think they got a decent squad. Fresno State plus 20.5. They cover by the hook, under 45.5. Number 21, Arizona, 61-39 over your New Mexico Lobos. Hey, I've been impressed, though. The offensive output for New Mexico has been very good the first 2 games. It's just they don't have any defense.
My guy, Devin, is the best quarterback UNM's had in a minute. That guy can move. But yeah, there was plenty of times where there were receivers not even like lined up and not covered. Like, I'm not sure if it just wasn't going on. If it must have been unnoticed, but this was an issue in UNM's game last week as well. And they have like individual talent. Like Christian Ellis has put together 2 good games, but I don't know, man. 61 points. I was watching this and I was like, dang, UNM's down 3 at halftime. Cool. I drive home from the bar, and after 1 beer, I'm safe. I'm getting home, and it's only like 3 minutes into the second half, and I'm like, how did they score 14 points in 3 minutes?
So, yeah. Well, I mean, this is what I thought Arizona was going to be, and why I have them playing against Utah in the Big 12 championship game this year, because I just trust Noah Fafita and Tetsuroa McMillan. That's the thing I trust with the Wildcats. The defense wasn't great. 39 points against New Mexico is not great for Arizona's defense. But if they can outscore people, they got a chance. And the issue is they're going to have to play Utah eventually, which has a good defense. So, but yeah, I mean, you could not have scripted a better first outing this year for Fafita and McMillan. Fafita 61.3%, 422, 4 touchdowns, a pick, and a 10-yard carry as well. Your guy, Devin Dampier, 57.1%, 263 touchdowns, 2 picks though, 15 carries, 130 rushing yards, 2 scores, so 5 touchdowns. He even outdid Fafita in this one.
Fafita and McMillan, that's I would say the hardest quarterback receiver duo that UNM is going to be facing all season. Including the Auburn game in 2 weeks. So yes, the defense looked horrible, but that was a very difficult match. And then also, I want to shout out Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt popping off for a touchdown, 106 yards against his former team. I know that he really wanted that touchdown, and though I unbiasedly was rooting for UNM. That was at that point the game was over, so that was nice to see Merritt get his love.
Yeah, for sure, on 13 carries. His teammate Quali Conley, a guy that Brent Brennan brought with him from San Jose State, excellent day for him. 90 yards on 10 carries, 3 touchdowns, and 3 catches for 29 yards. UNM running back Naquari Rogers, he had a 6-yard receiving touchdown on his own lone reception. And then, like I said, McMillan, I mean, just ridiculous. 10 receptions, 304 receiving yards, and 4 touchdowns. I mean, give him the Biletnikoff. Give him the freaking Biletnikoff right now. Because, I mean, that's ridiculous. And I mean, UNM also had a good day. Luke Wysong has put together 2 good games so far. 8 receptions, 129 yards, and a receiving score. And then his teammate Caleb Medford, a touchdown on his lone 9-yard reception. And defensively,
Medford is dealing with an injury, so he might be someone to pop off even later in the season. I think once Medford gets back to full health, him and Wysong are going to be a good duo for Devin.
Yeah. Defensively, I'm going to go with Arizona, though. You already talked about Christian Ellis, but I'm going to go with Arizona. Linebacker Jacob Manu, 7 tackles, 4 solos, 2.5 tackles for loss. New Mexico did cover. Great teams win, good teams cover, though, John. Plus 29.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Over 60.5 easily. Arizona by themselves. 100 points even in that game. And I was thinking about placing a live bet on the over when it was like 76, and it was like 14-14 in the game, and it was like 76 on the over. I'm like, that's a lot. That's a lot of points. But it did. It hit over anyways. This one did not go as I thought. Arizona State just demolishing Wyoming 48-7. I was really high on Wyoming. And Logan actually lone wolfed this one on the Sun Devils in our picks. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. They just did not have any defense, and when they were on offense, it was a struggle. So Michigan State transfer quarterback Sam Levitt had a great first game as a Sun Devil, 63.6%, 258, 2 touchdowns, 8 carries, 47 yards. Wyoming, like I said, Evan Svoboda, I like him, 40%, 42 yards, 2 picks, and a fumble, though. He was getting beat up all day. The Arizona State defensive line was eating. Caden Anderson came in, had a little bit of success, though, 80%, 4 of 5, 36 yards, a touchdown. But, yeah, it was a pretty bad night overall for new head coach Jake Swavel there and the Cowboys. Cam Scattaboo, year 2 in Arizona State, 11 carries, 49 yards, touchdown. His teammate, DeCarlos Brooks, also getting one into the end zone, as did their other running back teammate there, Kyson Brown, 2 catches, 73 yards, a receiving score to go along with 6 carries. And there wasn't a ton of big receiving numbers, but 32 yards on 2 catches and a touchdown. Tight end Shimon Mateer for the Sun Devils. He led the way through the air. And Wyoming wide receiver Chris Durr Jr., he had the lone touchdown for the Cowboys on the night at the end of the game. And 2 defensive touchdowns for the Sun Devils really helped them out. So, yeah, offensively for Wyoming, it was big bust of a night. Arizona State linebacker Zyrus Fayasu, 3 tackles, a solo, 29-yard pick, 6, and then defensive lineman Justin Watley, 2 tackles, a half as tackles for loss, and a 6-yard fumble return for a touchdown. Arizona State covers -6.5, easily over 47.5 by themselves. The last game we had last night, Washington, 35-3 over Weber State. Mississippi State transfer Will Rogers in his first game as a Husky, 76.9%, 250, a touchdown, pretty solid. Backup quarterback Damon Williams Jr. came in, 60%, 28 yards, a touchdown, 3 carries, 17 yards for him. Bobcats quarterback Richie Munoz, 34.4%, 98 yards, 4 carries, and 19 yards as well. Arizona running back Jonah Coleman came over with head coach Jed Fish. Excellent first game as a Husky. 16 carries, 127 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 catches for 19 yards as well. Weber also had a 100-yard rusher. Running back Damon Bankston, 16 carries, 105 yards there. So nice night in a blowout loss for him. Washington wide receiver Giles Jackson led the game in receiving, 10 catches, 98 yards. And then his teammates catching touchdowns went to wide receiver Denzel Boston and tight end Decker DeGraff. And defensively, I'm going to go with Weber. Defensive end Kamari Munier Bailey, 5 tackles, all of them solos, a sack, 2 tackles for loss. Washington, -29 covered, under 51.5. I wanted to put this game in to our pick segment this week just because I think people are forgetting about Washington. I mean, they were in the freaking national championship this year, and they're unranked. I think Jed Fish is a great coach. Will Rogers is a really good quarterback, so I would not be shocked if Washington ends up ranked by the end of the season. But
shout out to Jed Fish for being able to keep Will Rogers.
Yeah. All right. There wasn't any breaking news, so there's only a couple news nuggets this week, anyways. Obviously, short, just one day in between shows. So, college football. Sad news on Friday night. UNC quarterback Max Johnson going down with injury. Transfer in from Texas A&M. High hopes for him. broken right leg out for the season. So they're going to have to turn to sophomore quarterback Connor Harrell now. And he was okay, I thought, at the end of that game. But I think they're going to lean a ton on Omari and Hampton, who I absolutely love. But, yeah. UFL news, a couple re-signings and a signing. The Showboats, my Memphis Showboats, they re-signed edge rusher Jeff McCulloch. Good season last year. Excellent player on defense. And then the Stallions, they re-signed tight end Jordan Thomas. Going to be a focal point on offense this year for them. And then the San Antonio Brahmas, they signed former Indiana wide receiver Ty Freifogel. Excellent career at Indiana. So interested to see what he can do in San Antonio next year. And then just one NFL news, the Ravens, they signed Browns quarterback Tyler Huntley to their practice squad back in Baltimore for Tyler Huntley there. So,
did you see the other news that the LA Rams have hired Scott Frost as a assistant coach slash
senior analyst? Yeah, senior analyst. I see.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then the other big thing I saw today was an update on Ricky Pearsall. His mom said that he was shot through the chest, but it didn't hit any vital organs. So he's very lucky to be alive.
Yeah. Yeah, that was crazy. I forgot to put that on there. 49ers first round rookie wide receiver Ricky Pearsall shot yesterday in a robbery attempt. And it's just crazy. I mean, we had the Gaudreau deaths on Friday morning there in the hockey world, and now we have, first round pick getting shot by, I think what even makes it worse for me, it was a 17-year-old kid, man. I mean, come on. For one, how did this kid get a gun? That's what I think the cops need to investigate. Obviously, that's just ridiculous. That a kid.
I didn't know they were 17. That's crazy.
Yeah, and it was over a Rolex. So, and that's another thing. Why does this kid have to resort to that kind of stuff? But that's all the police department's job. So, all right, let's get to our playoff brackets. So we're going to start off with Jimmy's. And records-wise, I didn't get records for Logan, so we just got to disregard the records when we get to Logan's brackets. But here is Jimmy's AFC bracket. He has the Chiefs as the first seed at 12-5. The Ravens winning the AFC North at 12-5 in the second. The Colts, he's really high on AR-15 in the Colts this year. AR-5, whatever. I always forget what the hell number Anthony Richardson wears. He wore 15 at Florida. That's why I always think of 15. I think he wears 5 with Indy. But yeah, he's really high on the Colts. He has them winning the South, 12-5 there. And then the Dolphins in fourth, winning the AFC East at 11-6. Facing the Texans in the fifth seed at 11-6. The Browns, he's really high on the Browns, but he's kind of mandated to be high on the Browns since, Carolina is a Browns fan. So, so 11-6 in the second wild card there up against the Colts, and the Bills at 9-8 in the seventh seed going to Baltimore in round one. So any initial thoughts there on his?
So I'm pulling out my whiteboard because I got my own as well that I wanted to pull out.
Mm-hmm.
And I can talk about my specific ones after.
Okay.
But looking at Jimmy's, I think Kansas City's the obvious in the AFC West. I think Baltimore will win the AFC North. Indianapolis, I think that's a little high. I still think that's Houston's division, considering how great C.J. Stroud looked, and then they just went full on through. I don't think Joe Mixon's like a superstar all-pro running back, but he's an upgrade. And I think he'll help booster that. I know Stephon Diggs, people have some hesitancy there, but he's still a dang good. If you're to consider Stephon Diggs your number 3, best number 3 in the league, I would think. So I think Houston still has the division there. I'm with him on Miami winning the East as well, so I don't have any qualms there. And then looking at his wild card picks, he's got. So I think I do like Indianapolis. You'll see where I have them, so I don't hate them being possibly if you swapped them in Houston. I think Buffalo, Josh Allen's too good to not make the playoffs. Though I think my biggest qualm here is Cleveland. It's difficult for elite defenses to repeat year after year, and I don't trust Deshaun Watson. Like, what has he shown us in the last 3-4 years that he can figure this out? Like, Cleveland they weren't an exciting team until Joe Flacco came. Respectfully, I think Cleveland might have a better shot if they had Jameis Winston. So that's the only qualm I got there.
Well, Jimmy's moving the Browns on to he has them beating the Colts in the wild card round to go to Kansas City. The Ravens beating the Bills to host the divisional round playoff, and the Texans upsetting the Dolphins to get into the divisional round, going to Baltimore. Forgot to switch that 5 and 7 there, so Texans are the 5th seed actually. I can definitely see that. I could see the Browns beating the Colts though. The defense is what I think is a theme of those first 3 there, the Chiefs, the Browns, and the Ravens. And then the Texans, I think that would be an offensive shootout in Miami in that playoff game. So, and then, Chiefs and Ravens into the AFC Championship game. I don't have any issues with that. I think those would be the 2 teams that would win in those scenarios.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to go against those 2 teams. Like, Lamar and Patrick Mahomes are arguably the 2 best players, period, in the league right now. So it's a quarterback-driven league, and I'm curious who he's got taking this all the way between these 2.
Well, we'll get that at the end, but let's go to Logan's AFC bracket here, and also Chiefs at number 1. He's got the Bengals at 2, winning the AFC North. The Dolphins in 3rd at winning the AFC East, and he's got the Jags winning the AFC South in the 4th seed. The Ravens in the 5th, the Jets in 6th, and the Texans in 7th.
I'm curious why he's so high on Jacksonville.
I don't know. I mean, I could
like
see.
I wouldn't be surprised with him becoming like a 7 seed, but what's with these 2 guys hating on Houston?
I don't know. I'm on your boat. You'll see in my AFC bracket in a little bit, but yeah. Okay, so Logan had the Texans upsetting Cincinnati to get to Kansas City. The Dolphins beating the Jets in the AFC East matchup there, and the Ravens upsetting the Jags. See, it didn't even matter. The Jags were the AFC South winner because they moved on anyways, or they lost anyways to the Ravens. So he's got a very interesting, I think, divisional round. Texans, Chiefs, Dolphins, Ravens. And surprise, surprise, Chiefs obviously moving on to beat the Texans, and the Dolphins. He has the Dolphins heading into winning at home against Baltimore and making the AFC Championship against the Chiefs.
Has Miami done enough to show they can win in the winter?
Yeah, but they'd be in Miami the whole way until they go to Kansas City for the championship game.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that's going to be crucial if they can get home field. And hopefully, I think in this scenario, by the end of the season, Miami's pass rush is healthy. Also, he has them going 12-5. I see. Okay.
No. The records. Remember, I said Logan. I didn't get records for Logan, so.
Oh, so are those okay?
Yeah,
I was looking.
disregard.
I'm like, does that say 15-2 next to them? Like, what?
No, disregard all the records. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, that'll be crucial if Miami can get home field and that pass rush gets healthy. You know.
Yeah, definitely. All right, on to mine. And Logan and I usually are pretty similar, as we've seen throughout the years. So I also have the Kansas City Chiefs in the first seed, 13-4 for me. I am high on the Dolphins, 12-5 in the second seed. And my AFC North winner is the Ravens at 11-6 in third. And I am with you, John. I have the Texans winning the AFC South at 10-7. And then I have three AFC North teams though in my playoffs. The Bengals at 11-6 in fifth, and then the Steelers at 7 at 9-8, and the Jets are my other wild card in the sixth seed at 11-6. I went with the homer pick in the Steelers at the 7 seed because I have two teams finishing 9-8 in the AFC this year. The other one's the Chargers, but I went with my Steelers.
That's the only issue I have with this one. And before you switch to NFC, I wanna give you mine as well, and I can send them to you if you want to add it. See how we do.
Okay, yeah. Let's get through the rest of my AFC here. So I have the Bengals upsetting the Texans, heading to Kansas City. And I have the Dolphins beating the Steelers to host the divisional round divisional game against the Ravens, who beat the Jets. So yeah,
you have Houston winning, but I believe you were the only one who did not have Houston advancing.
Yeah, I like the Bengals a lot this year.
I'm curious how Cincinnati's going to look now that they've lost their offensive coordinator. His name's escaping me. He went to Tennessee.
Yeah, Brian Callahan.
Yes, I'm very curious. I think a lot of times, and not just in this case, but like you can look at how Baltimore, for example, lost Mike McDonald. Like you saw what happened to Philly when they lost both of their coordinators to last season to the Colts and the Cardinals. And I'm curious if there's going to be a similar impact on teams such as the Bengals or the Ravens, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I am with Jimmy. I have the Chiefs beating Cincinnati and the Ravens upsetting the Dolphins to have a Chiefs-Ravens AFC title game. So Jimmy and I are the same.
Not bad.
Is that what you had in the AFC title?
No. So mine's a little different. Should I walk through mine?
Yeah.
So I have the 4 division winners from the 1 seed to the 4 seed. I have Houston being the 1 seed at 12-5. Okay. I also have Kansas City going 12-5. So they'll be the 2 seed. Houston in this case just gets the tiebreaker. I have Baltimore winning the North at 11-6. I also have Miami winning their AFC East at 10-7. So that would be the order: Houston 1, Kansas City 2, Baltimore 3, Miami 4. Mm-hmm. I'm still high on Cincinnati, so I think they get the 5 seed at 10-7. And then I think the AFC East actually gets 3 playoff teams in. So I have Miami winning, but I have Buffalo. I have Buffalo with the same record. So I think Miami and Buffalo both go 10-7, but Buffalo will lose the tiebreaker, and so they'll end up with a 6 seed. And then I think Aaron Rodgers will play enough, and even if Aaron Rodgers doesn't play, I think the Jets have a more serviceable backup now with Tyrod Taylor than they did last year. So I think they'll be able to squeak out at least a 9-8 season, and that'll be enough to get them the 7 seed. And then looking at how teams advance, I have currently the Jets as the 7 seed at number 2 Kansas City. I would say Kansas City advances. I have the 3 seed Ravens beating the 6 seed Bills. And then I have the 5 seed Bengals upsetting the 4 seed Dolphins. So that would make my final four Houston hosting Baltimore and Kansas City hosting Cincinnati. And all in all, it's going to be very boring. I have the 1 and 2 seed, the Chiefs and the Texans, being your AFC Championship game in Houston.
Wait, so Cincinnati was the 5, Baltimore was the 3. Oh yeah, never mind. I was thinking Kansas City was the 1. I don't know what it was.
Wait. No, in this case, Kansas City doesn't get the 1.
Yeah, so it was KC 2 and Baltimore 3, right?
Right, and Miami 4.
Okay, but then Cincinnati would go to Houston, right? 5-1.
Yeah, Cincinnati at 5 would go to 4 Miami.
No, I'm talking about the divisional round. The Bengals.
In the divisional round. I'm sorry. 5 Cincinnati would go to. Correct. Oh shit, you're right. Excuse my language. Cincinnati would go to 1 Houston. So in that case, I have Houston winning, and I would still have Kansas City beating Baltimore.
Okay, so Texans hosting the Chiefs in the title game.
Correct.
Gotcha.
I'm really high on the Texans this year.
All right. So we got our AFC Championship game set. Let's head to the NFC bracket. We're starting off with mine. Okay. So I had the 49ers in the number 1 seed, 14-3. My Eagles, go Birds, at 2nd seed, 12-5. The Lions winning the NFC North at 12-5 as well. The Falcons winning the NFC South. So originally when we did our predictions, right, because we did those in like June, I had a 3-way tie for the NFC South at 8-9 with the Falcons winning it by some tiebreaker. However, with the defensive additions, I gave the Falcons a couple extra wins. I think their defensive additions are going to help them out a lot this year. Win 2 more games. So I pushed them up to 10-7. I have the Packers at 11-6 in the first wild card. Number 5, the Rams at 9-8 in the 6th seed, rematch of last year's wild card round in Detroit. And then I have the Seahawks, your Seahawks, 9-8 in the 7th seed. 3 teams from the NFC West get in.
I don't hate these. I'm with you on Atlanta. I could see Atlanta having a even better record than people anticipate just because of how easy their schedule will be, playing the rest of the NFC South. I think San Francisco and LA are going to be not as great as people anticipate. And when I say that for San Francisco, I still think San Francisco wins the division. But not at that elite level that they've been the last 2 years. And then I think not enough people are talking about the greatest defensive player, arguably of all time, Aaron Donald, retiring, and how that's going to impact that defense. You don't just replace him. You can't replace Aaron Donald. And I think that's going to have a larger impact. And then on top of that, considering the amount of injuries the Rams have been dealing with all offseason, as surprising as they were last year, I could see it easily flipping. Now I think Sean McVay has them as a really great team, so I can't see them going below 8-9, 9-8. But I don't know if that's going to be enough for a playoff seed. You know?
Yeah, I mean, if the Rams aren't in, my next 3 teams that I had all at 8 and 9 are the Cowboys, the Bucks, and the Saints. So
interesting.
I was the only one that kept the Cowboys out. That's not a personal thing. As much as I hate the Cowboys, I do not believe that Dallas is going to be able to run the ball this year. I don't believe in their running backs. I don't care if they sign Dalvin Cook. What has Dalvin Cook done with the Jets or the Ravens last year that makes you think he's going to become like the lead back, like Minnesota Dalvin again?
I think he's I'm with you, Rusty. You'll see. I'm going to text you in the private chat my picks, and you'll see my NFC ones as well. I'm with you.
All right. So yeah, my wild card round, I have the Packers beating the Falcons in Atlanta. I had the Eagles beating the Seahawks and the Lions beating the Rams once again to set up a 49ers Packers rematch once again. and the Eagles hosting the Lions in Philly, which I think would be an excellent game in the playoffs. And to the chagrin of all my Packers friends, they can't beat the 49ers. They just can't. They have not been able to beat the 49ers in the playoffs for I don't even know how long. So I have the 49ers winning and hosting the Eagles. Of course, I have the Eagles going to the NFC Championship game against San Fran.
Interesting. I'm gonna leave my thoughts to when I talk about my bracket.
Okay. On to Logan's bracket. So he's very opposite of me on Dallas. He has Dallas as the 1 seed.
That's I'm sorry, how?
I don't know. Of course, he has his Packers in the 2 seed. The Rams, he doesn't like your Rams prediction. He has the Rams winning the NFC West, and the Falcons in the NFC South as well. 49ers in the 5th seed, Eagles in the 6th, and the Lions in the 7th. So pretty much opposite of what I had in all the division races except for Atlanta. And yeah, so he had Dallas in, and I had Seattle in. Yeah, so he has the 49ers beating the Falcons, as I think everyone does with the NFC South winner. Heading to Dallas in the divisional round, he has the Packers beating the Lions in an NFC North matchup, and he has the Rams beating the Eagles in LA to head to Green Bay. And then he has the Packers beating the Rams, hosting the NFC Championship game as the 49ers beat the Cowboys in the divisional round. So Packers, 49ers in the NFC Championship for him.
I don't like how he got there, but I don't hate the picks for the championship game itself.
Yeah. And on to Jimmy's bracket. So he is more along my lines. The 49ers are the 1 seed at 14-3. The Eagles in 2 at 12-5. He has the Lions in 3 at 11-6. The Falcons at 10-7 in the 4th seed. He, however, has the Cowboys in 5th at 12-5. The Packers in 6 at 10-7, and the Rams in 7 at 10-7. So back to normal person world. He has the Packers upsetting the Lions in Detroit, the Eagles beating the Rams in Philly, and the Cowboys beating the Falcons to set up some interesting matchups. Again, 49ers, Packers in San Fran, and NFC East showdown, Eagles hosting the Cowboys in the divisional round. And just like I do, he has the 49ers hosting the Eagles in the NFC title game.
Okay. Is it my turn now?
Yep, go ahead.
Did you get the photo I sent you?
Yeah.
I guess. Okay, so what I got here, I'll do the division winners. I have the 1 seed. I have the Detroit Lions winning the 1 seed, home field advantage, going 12-5. The 2 seed I have, I still have San Francisco also going 12-5, but I think Detroit gets the tiebreaker. And so San Francisco will be at the 2 seed.
That's this is week 17, right? That's week 17.
I believe so. Yeah, that's going to be honestly that might be the what helps decide who goes to the Super Bowl, that game. Yeah. I honestly think the Atlanta Falcons are head and shoulders above the other teams. I like what you were saying about the defensive additions with Simmons and
Judon.
Matt Judon from New England. So I think that they are going to feast on the NFC South and that their record is going to be inflated more than people anticipate. Do they look like an 11-6 team? Not necessarily, but I think that they're going to have a better record just because of their division. And I think that's going to be good enough to get them a 3 seed. I think a lot of people are putting in are penciling in the NFC South winner for the 4 seed, but I think Atlanta has done enough to elevate themselves above that. So I have Atlanta with the 3 seed at 11-6. I'm with y'all with the I'm with you. I have no clue what they're talking about with the Dallas Cowboys. I have the Philadelphia Eagles going 11-6 and getting the 4 seed as the division winner there. I have the Green Bay Packers with the number 5 seed. They're also going 11-6. I think Jordan Love with that entire receiving core is going to flourish. I think the Packers' Achilles heels as well has been that defense the last few years, but now bringing in a new coordinator from Boston College, I think that's going to have a very big impact. And I honestly would not be shocked if the Packers end up making it all the way to the Super Bowl, but we will see where I have them going. I have the Packers at the 5 seed. In the 6 seed, I have the Seattle Seahawks 10-7. I think this is, of course, going to come across as a homer pick just because I'm a Seahawks fan. But Seattle never gets talked about when it comes to the national media. You can look at that in terms of like the league-wide award voting. Devin Witherspoon not coming in the top 4 for Defensive Player of the Year last year is blasphemous. And I anticipate Byron Murphy's going to be the best defensive player or defensive rookie of the draft, but I anticipate him not winning for that same fact. I don't think Seattle ever gets the love that they need. Geno Smith, on the other, is just another echo of that. He, because of his career as a backup, most of the time everyone just writes him off and don't anticipate him to be able to. I think they have a preconceived notion of what he is, and they don't want to understand that he's going to, in my opinion, shock a lot of people in this Ryan Grubb offense. They're going to air it out, and I think Geno's floor is 30 touchdown passes this year, personally. Mm-hmm. And this is all of this is not even talking about the biggest Achilles heel for Seattle is the offensive line, and they were able to get Connor Williams, who's healthy, and when he's healthy, he's all-pro center. Charles Cross is a very steady left tackle. Who's looked great in camp, by the way. And they have, for the first time, 3 guards who can start, but only 2 positions. So I think the addition of Christian Haynes with Anthony Bradford, and then you still have Laken Tomlinson, all being coached by Scott Huff, who Ryan Grubb brought over from the University of Washington. I think the Seattle Seahawks are going to shock a lot of people. And that's not even considering the defensive wizard that they just brought in from the Ravens. I'm very excited about Seattle, personally. Not enough to win the division. I still think I think that should hopefully take down the homer allegations. But I have Seattle as a 6 seed. And this is probably the shocker. I don't think I saw this with anybody. I have the 7 seed going to the Chicago Bears.
Yeah.
I think they have a ton of hype around them, and a lot of people are rightfully annoyed about that hype. But I think Caleb Williams is the real deal. And they've set Caleb up to succeed. It's not like he's walking into a situation like Andrew Luck did where he has no one blocking for him or no one to throw to. Like he has 3 number 1 wide receivers, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and Rome Odunze. Like they are set up very well. And now the Bears, I think one of their biggest weaknesses was the pass rush. And they just traded from Seattle, Darrell Taylor, who almost had 10 sacks just a few years ago. So I think Chicago is going to do very well. It's just a matter of how the tie breaks go. I have 3 teams going 9-8. And I think the Bears are the ones who are going to get that 7 seed. The other teams just missing out would be the Cowboys and the Arizona Cardinals.
Mm-hmm.
So from there, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'm fine with the Bears going 9-8. Jimmy and I had them 7-10, but I have the under 9.5 wins for Chicago this year, which I think is like gold. So I think 9-8 is definitely their ceiling. And you don't even want to. I don't think you want me to tell you what Jimmy had as the Seahawks record this year, John.
He probably put like 4-13 or something.
6-11. He hates the Seahawks this year.
I don't understand it because you look at Seattle last year, they barely missed the playoffs with a horrible defense. Horrible defense. That's what got Pete Carroll fired. And then, like, you bring in Mike McDonald, who had the Ravens defense destroying everybody, including the Rams and the 49ers. I'm sorry,
Mhm.
not the Rams. The Rams actually, Stafford went off. But you like the way I look at it, the floor for the defense is night and like head and shoulders above what it looked like last year. Like last year's defense was horrible, and they still went 9-8.
Yeah.
You know, like I really think it's because Seattle's just packed out there out west, and you're starting to see some national people like they're becoming like the team no one's talking about. Like I think Jimmy's going to look very foolish. Personally. So let me continue where I have the NFC looking. So I have the Bears. They're the 7th seed. They're traveling to the 2 seed San Francisco 49ers. It's very difficult for rookies to succeed in the playoffs. And I think the 49ers defense is just going to be way too much for that Bears offensive line to handle. So I think the 49ers will win easily. And then I have Seattle. So in this case, I was talking about the Falcons having the inflated record, getting them 3 seed. So Seattle actually lines up in a fairly great matchup against Atlanta. So I have Seattle going to Atlanta just because Atlanta's inflated and how much I've talked up Seattle. I do have Seattle winning and making the divisional round. And then I have the Green Bay Packers as the 5 seed, beating the 4 seed Philadelphia Eagles. I really think the Packers, just for the reasons I mentioned before, with that defense just being improved and Jordan Love another year into being a starter, I think their ceiling is very high. So entering the divisional round, I have the Packers at the 49ers, and then I have the Seahawks at the Lions. And in both of these matches, Rusty, you had talked about how the 49ers have always had the Packers' hands in the playoffs. In addition to that, the Seahawks have always had the Lions' hand when they play in the recent years. Despite both of these things happening, I would argue upsets in both. Maybe not an upset for Seattle to lose, but I do have the Lions beating Seattle, and I have the Packers beating the 49ers. With the Packers beating the 49ers, I think it just comes down to Brock Purdy not being able to stand up in a bigger situation, and I would believe in Jordan Love far better. And then I think the Lions just have, as much as I love Seattle and how much I've talked them up, I think this is year one of a possible Super Bowl run. I don't think this is the year they make it. I think they need another year to be able to blend and work together. But I know everyone's going to call me a homer for seeing Seattle go to the divisional round, but I really think that's very possible. So in the NFC Championship game, I have an NFC North matchup of the Green Bay Packers going to Detroit.
All right. My thing also with the Packers is once again kicker. They cut both of their guys that they had throughout the preseason in Anders Carlson and Greg Joseph, and they just signed the guy that had a great preseason with the Titans, Brett Narveson. So we'll see.
They're not going to need to kick, Rusty. They're going to be going 28, 35-0. Just kidding. That's crazy. I think that's a legitimate concern that you bring up.
All right. So here is Jimmy's championships and Super Bowl 59. 49ers, Eagles, Chiefs, Ravens, the 1-2 seed in each conference. And he has the Niners beating the Eagles in San Fran. The Ravens going to Kansas City and upsetting to make the Super Bowl. It's a rematch, Super Bowl 47. And the 49ers finally break through. Kyle Shanahan gets one, and he has CMC winning MVP. So, yeah.
Interesting. Would you like my thoughts now or after?
I mean, I think you can go. I think this is one of probably the top Super Bowl matchups that people are having. So,
my concern, what I think, respectfully to Jimmy, I think this is a symptom of NFL fans, myself included, getting bored of the status quo. This is like everyone rooting against the Patriots for 2 decades, and now it's everyone rooting against the Chiefs. I haven't seen anything to indicate that the Chiefs would take a step back, or that a team like the Ravens would be able to step in front of the Chiefs. The Chiefs didn't have anyone to throw to last year outside of Rashee Rice, and now they have him, Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, Kelsey's coming back. That running game's still good. I know they lost L'Jarius Sneed, but they have the best defensive coordinator arguably in the league. So I still can't see how a team like Baltimore to be able to step up. And then with the 49ers, this is actually going to be one of the articles I write for the company I just got a side gig with. They've been to, and correct me if I'm wrong, 4 straight NFC championship games and lost 2 Super Bowls, both to the Chiefs in heartbreaking fashion. Like, talk about me being a Seahawks homer. I recognize just being in back-to-back Super Bowls in 13 and 14 and losing the 2014 Super Bowl in a heartbreaking fashion. One, that's a lot of games and a lot of reps and a lot of snaps. That's a lot of wear and tear on your body. 2, that's emotionally draining. That's a lot of highs. That's a lot of lows. The 49ers have gone to 4 straight NFC championship games and lost two Super Bowls to the Chiefs. That's got to be weighing on these guys. I was watching the receiver documentary, and that's what Debo and Kittle were talking about. They're like, what the hell do we got to do to get these people down? Like they're human. That has to have a drain on them. And then you add in the stuff. I know Ayuk has recently gotten a contract extension, which I think is huge. I don't think that offense is the same without him. But Trent Williams still doesn't have a contract.
Yeah.
Trent Williams doesn't have a contract. And then you add in that McCaffrey's been hurt all offseason, and then the horrible news about Pearsall. Like, this team cannot get away from these emotional, heartbreaking, like, difficult stories. And that's why I think it's going to be difficult for the 49ers. Now, it might not come out in the regular season, but when it comes to the playoffs and they're in the bright lights again, like, they've been there, they know how to deal with it. But are they going to be able to? I don't know. I think the dam's about to break for them.
Yeah, well, we'll see. So I'm up next with my championship Super Bowl. So, yeah, I mean, I had the same thing as Jimmy. I had the 49ers hosting the Eagles and the Chiefs hosting the 3 seed Ravens. Jimmy had them as the 2 seed. But, yeah, of course, I don't care about being a homer. I'm going to pick my Philadelphia Eagles to win the NFC Championship game. And beat San Francisco just like they did a couple years ago. And I'm with Jimmy on the Ravens. I don't care if it's hating on the Chiefs or not. I still think there are question marks with Kansas City. I think Baltimore's defense is going to be able to win that game for them. It's going to be a low-scoring affair, I think, because of how good the Chiefs' D is as well. But I don't trust the Chiefs' offensive tackles, and I think that's where Baltimore is going to be able to exploit in the AFC Championship game. I think that's the biggest question mark for the Kansas City offense right now is the tackles. So, so Eagles, Ravens in the Super Bowl, and of course, go Birds. Philadelphia Eagles win Super Bowl 59. Jalen Hurts is my MVP.
I mean, I just gave a thorough opinion about the Ravens already. I also think that with the Ravens, they're outside of Kyle Hamilton and Madubuike. Are there any other blue chip defenders on that defense?
Roquan.
Okay, we'll give Roquan's definitely blue chip. Like, I don't know if they have the pass rush to be able to. I understand the Chiefs tackles. I think they're starting Sua Matia at left tackle. Like that is concerning. Donovan Smith didn't look that great last year either. Like I don't know. If all else fails, I trust Patty Mahomes with that. But you never know. We'll see. The Eagles, I love the Saquon addition, and I think it's going to be very intriguing to see how the new coordinators mesh, because last year I think just wasn't a good combination. Kind of like what I was talking about the Aaron Donald with the Rams. This is to a lesser extent. However, the Eagles lost the Hall of Fame center. Like, they're not going to be able to. I don't anticipate them being able to just have a free touchdown anytime they're within the 1 yard line this year. You know?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's going to have an impact on that, you know, and then that defense is aging. It's going to catch up to you. I still have Philly win the playoffs, but these question marks become more highlighted once you're at this level, the championship and Super Bowl, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I love the coordinators. Vic Fangio's had top 10, top 5 defenses everywhere he's been. I've wanted Kellen Moore for the Panthers head coaching job the last couple of years and finally get him on one of my teams. So, but no, I think the brotherly shove didn't look great in the preseason, but that's because it wasn't Jalen Hurts behind the line, and plus it wasn't the starting line anyways. But yeah, I think Cam Jurgens is going to be fine at center. I think the more pressing issue is right guard, where he left. They're trying to figure out who's going to be that right guard. It looks like it's going to be Mekhi Becton right now. So I mean that's
moving Mekhi in.
Yeah. He's been playing a lot at guard.
What happens if he's inevitably hurt?
They have some other guys, but I think it looks like I think Becton's the guy right now. But yeah, I mean they got Jahan Dotson now as well on offense, so I think three at receiver is pretty solid. And I love Saquon, obviously.
I got a question for you. Who is the best? Just a little off topic. Who is the best? Which team has the best wide receiver trio in the league?
I mean, I think it's Philly's definitely up there.
Don't be scared of being a homer.
I mean, it's my top 3. I don't really know what order. Philly, Seattle's one of them as well. And then the one that popped into my head was Miami, even though Odell's injured right now or on PUP. But I mean, I think that 3 as well in Miami is very solid.
I'm right there with you. I think those are the 3 teams. Odell's being hurt. That I think that's why I was saying don't be scared of being a homer. That's why I bring it up. I think Philly has the best receiver trio in the league right now. Once you got that trade in for Jahan Dotson and he's your 3, like I think that could take them a long way. Though once y'all see this Ryan Grubb offense, Seattle might be up there. They might be number 1, but I'm not going to say that now. I'm not going to be too homery. I would take Philly.
But yeah, I think Philly. I think a lot of people are sleeping on Philly's defense just because of how bad they played last year. But Nakobe Dean had a good preseason, and it's going to be a question mark of can they get pass rush without Hassan Reddick? But Bryce Huff is good and younger, and I think that the D tackles are ready to step up. I think the Georgia boys, Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, are ready to step up into above average to great starters. And I'm blanking on, I don't know why I can't think of the other guy. Josh Sweat has been a undervalued player, I think, his whole career. So I think he's going to be good as well. And the secondary will figure itself out. I mean, Slay's going to still play well. I have Quinyon as my defensive rookie of the year, so I'm excited to watch him. And yeah, I think they're loaded at safety as well with CJ Gardner-Johnson being back. So anyways, on to Logan's championship. He has Packers, 49ers, and Chiefs, Dolphins, and he has a rematch of Super Bowl I. Yeah.
This is a very homer pick, but honestly, I can't get mad at him because I love both. Honestly, only issue I have in these championship games is that I can't see Miami going that far. Packers are going to be pretty shiesty this year, so this is definitely a homer pick because it's Logan for sure. But
yeah,
I can
and
see
Jordan Love. Jordan Love as his MVP as well. The Packers winning Super Bowl 59.
I'll put it this way: I would think the Packers winning a Super Bowl is more likely than an Eagles Super Bowl win.
Yeah, well, our guy Danny Potter also gave me all kinds of stats with correlating the Bears win to Packers Super Bowls. He said that when the Bears won their 500th game, the Packers won the Super Bowl. When the Bears won their 600th game, the Packers won the Super Bowl. And apparently the Bears can win their 700th game this year. So they can get to franchise win number 700 this season, apparently. So
I mean, that sounds like a ton of coincidences.
I know.
Actual statistics. All right, is it my turn?
Yeah.
Okay, so recap. I have in the NFC Championship the Packers going to the Lions, and the AFC Championship I have the Chiefs going to the Houston Texans. I don't think this is going to be a shocker with the Chiefs and Texans. I mean, I've talked up Houston a lot, but as much as I've talked about Kansas City, like I think I think anybody respectfully is a fool picking against Mahomes in the playoffs. Like after last year's Chiefs team winning like last year's Chiefs team looked like they took a step back, and I was like, oh, I don't know, like they can't move the ball like they used to, and then they still won the Super Bowl. Like Mahomes is a different breed, and so I think it's disrespectful to him to choose anyone else. So
did the Chiefs win the Super Bowl if Dre Greenlaw's not hurt though?
I think Mahomes would, yes.
Okay.
I do. So I think I have the Chiefs winning the AFC Championship. And then out of the NFC, as much as I love the Packers, I think it's going to be super important for the Lions to get this home field advantage. Just imagine Detroit. Think about how rocking Detroit was after the home win against the Rams last year. Imagine the Lions hosting an NFC Championship game their opportunity to make the Super Bowl is at home, and of all teams to play, it's the big bad wolf, the Packers. Like that stadium's gonna be rocking like crazy. Like you add that to Dan Campbell's style of play, the Lions are there. I hope there's, I don't know. I can't see a situation where Detroit's going to is going to lose to their rival in their home stadium. You know,
I should have won last year.
Think about how much crazy that had to be. Remember that catch Ayuk had to get the 49ers back in it? That's like caught 1 out of 100 times. And that was in San Francisco, correct? That game?
Yep.
So they had to go on the road. They were kicking their butts and had all the wrong things happen for them to lose. You know? So I think the Lions are going to learn from those lessons while maintaining the bite your kneecap kind of mindset. And I have the Super Bowl being the Chiefs and the Lions. And then based on how I've talked, how do you think I'm going to go?
The Chiefs.
Yeah, I'm going to be the boring pick here. Am I the only one choosing the Chiefs to win?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I feel great about that. Like, I don't see any reason for me to think Mahomes will not allow his team to go on and win. Like, this is a perfect. We're in Patrick Mahomes' world.
Yeah,
and we're just living in it. So, shocker, I have the Chiefs over the Lions, and I got Mahomes being your MVP.
All right. All right. Last thing we got, we're gonna pick the 2 games coming up: the opener on Thursday and the Brazil game on Friday. So this is how it ended last year. Jimmy, in year 1 of being in the picks, he won our NFL picks. He and I both got the Super Bowl wrong, though. We both picked the 49ers. Logan picked the Chiefs. He lone wolfed the Chiefs, actually. So, yeah, Jimmy beat Logan by 5, and I was horrendous last year. He beat me by 15. So, yeah, I was not very good last season. All right, so NFL kickoff, and yeah, I mean, you saw our championship picks, so I guess Logan. Well, I should ask you, John, because I guess he wouldn't be lone wolfing if you're going with Kansas City.
This one's difficult because I would like to go Kansas City. My hesitation is the Ravens, or I'm sorry, the Lions ended up beating Kansas City last year.
Yep.
In Kansas City, so just because a Chiefs loss here would not be a precursor or an indicator that they would have a poor season or not go on to win the whole thing. All this said, I think the Ravens are going to have. I think their defense will be fine this year. I think it's just there might be an adjustment losing McDonald, losing Patrick Queen, losing Ty. Like they've lost a few names that are going to be impactful. I love the Derrick Henry signing, but that just might be the fantasy football fan in me. So yeah, Logan won't be lone wolf in here. I think it's going to be an even split. I'm going to go Kansas City here too.
All right. Yeah, Chiefs 3-point favorites at home, and yeah, I'm with you. The Lions win last year in the opener in Kansas City, I think, kind of is swaying me, but I also think that the Ravens are up for this one. Derrick Henry, plus Chiefs, no Hollywood for them in this game. They're still going to have Rasheed because he has not been suspended yet. So yeah, that's kind of why I'm going with the Ravens. And total is 46.5. I like the under in this game. I kind of talked about throughout the playoff picks there how good these defenses are for both of these teams. So I'm leaning on the under 46.5 in this one.
Interesting. I might go over, with the over here. Just talking about my concern about the Ravens defense. So I think the Chiefs will be able to put up points. And then also I think the Chiefs might also have a little. You know how Week 1 is always a little weird for teams trying to like get their bearings. A lot of the starters haven't played in the preseason. Like I could see the Chiefs having a similar slow. I could see both defenses here having a slower start, and then the offense is looking crazy, and the NFL loving all the touchdowns we see. I'm not saying it's going to be like a 42-45 game, but I would take the over.
Yeah, I'm just on the same deal that I am in the preseason, where it's like the defenses are usually ahead, even though it is now the regular season. But yeah, 8:20 p.m. NBC on Thursday, and NFL Sao Paulo game, Packers against the Eagles. 3-point favorite are the Philadelphia Eagles in Brazil, and Logan is lone wolfing this one here. Yeah. Of course, we knew he was going to take the Packers. But yeah, I mean, I think this game is going to be very close. I think it's going to be a really solid game. And of course, I was going to take the Eagles too. So I guess I'll defer to you as the neutral party in this scenario, since we don't have here.
That's funny. No, and for those listening, that this is a true lone wolf because I texted Rusty right before that I'm taking the Eagles here too. I just think that the Eagles' run game is going to be very scary with Saquon Barkley behind that Eagles offensive line, and then you add Jalen Hurts, and then we just talked about the best trio receivers right there. Like, I think that this could be a very quick game, relatively, just in terms of how much they're running the ball and making that clock go. And as I was talking about with the previous game, I think Week 1, I think you look at the defenses being a little more ready to go. I think sometimes the defenses take a little bit. A lot of times for me, it's just is there a new coordinator in place? The Packers have Eagles have 2 new coordinators in place. The Packers also have a new defensive coordinator in place. So I think that the Packers defense might have a slower start. What's the over under on this game?
Yeah, this one's a little higher, 48.5.
48.5. Interesting.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That is higher. I might take the under here just because how much I think the Eagles are going to be able to like run this ball down their throat and make this game shorter than people like a shorter game relatively. Yeah, that's why I got Philly here. I think that run game is going to be too much. I'm excited for Saquon. I'm very excited for Saquon.
Yeah, I think surprisingly, I think both teams are going to run the ball. That's my concern with Green Bay, though, as well, is like, what Josh Jacobs are we getting? Are we getting 2022 Josh Jacobs, where he was the rushing leader? Or are we getting 2023 Josh Jacobs, where he wasn't that great? The Packers also, like the Eagles, are replacing a lineman. They lost John Runyon in free agency to the Giants. So, I mean, there's, the same kind of interior new guy going on there. Yeah, I think more people are probably concerned about the Eagles defense than the Packers, but there's a lot of new faces for both teams on that side of the ball. So I think, yeah, under is probably the play. Like you said, the shortening of the game. I think both teams are going to run the ball. As much as people want to see Love throw it around with all the receivers they have, I think they brought Josh Jacobs in because they want to run the ball better.
This game might look more like a rugby game to some of the Brazilian fans out there.
And I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball with the big boys that Eagles have up front. Like I mentioned earlier, Carter and Davis. Those two big boys are going to stop some runs. 8:15 p.m. on Peacock on Friday. I'll have to load my subscription up for that one. Stupid. I'll be watching it at Jimmy's reception.
That's awesome.
And that is the show for today. A little over 2 hours. I didn't expect it to go this long, but when John and I get talking, we go. So anyways, next week we'll be back to our regular Monday show. So we'll get NFL week 2 of all your college football, NFL game recaps as well. And we'll preview the Thursday night game, which is the Bills and the Dolphins in Miami. Excellent AFC East week 2 matchup. See how Josh Allen looks in his second game of the season with the new receivers out there in Buffalo. Don't forget to follow us on all our social media at FAA Podcast and Instagram at X. FAApodcast.com is our website. You can check us out here on YouTube, Facebook, X, and Instagram, as well as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio. Thank you for being on, John. And we will see you back. We'll see everyone back on Wednesday. Yeah, we are doing a Wednesday show because I got to leave on Thursday to head to Ohio for Jimmy's wedding. So we'll do our Friday show on Wednesday this week and get you our college football picks and the rest of our NFL week 1 picks for the Friday show pick standings on Wednesday this week. Thank you guys. We'll see y'all